Welcome back to Les Schwab Tire Center's Outdoor GPS, presented by Fisherman's Marine and Outdoor. Now, it's real time.
Here we go.
Welcome back, everybody. Look who we got here in studio. We got Bruce Polley. We reined him in on a Saturday with the Columbia Open, the Willamette Open, but you've been chasing tuna.
The ocean's open.
The ocean's always open. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's good to see you, man.
Thank you.
Now, before we get into the meat of all this, which is not good, some of it's not good, in the end, how you been? And you went tuna fishing down south and had some fun.
Last week, yeah, went down to San Diego, jumped on the Shogun. Shogun was generous enough to donate a trip to the Saltwater Sportsman Show.
Oh, nice,
this year. And the guy that bought the trip in the auction went with me, Bob Lease, who has Ace Hardware in Newport. And he ended up catching the jackpot fish of our trip, which was 210 pounds.
Oh, wow. So
we got into a lot of fish. The boat had 54 fish, and I'd say half of them were over 100 pounds.
Wow.
So really quality fish. But that fishery, that bluefin fishery, it's just like spin the wheel and throw a dartboard. You throw a dart and hope that you land on a good spot, because they're there one day and they're gone the next.
Because they're never stopping. I mean,
no, they're always moving around. Always moving around.
Well, that's good. At least you've been able to get out and have some fun. Have you been chasing springers much? I saw you up once on the Columbia before it closed the first time.
I fished the Columbia main stem when it was open, and a couple trips to Oregon City, but not much. Leading up to a tuna trip and after the tuna trip, it's kind of like all my brain is stuck on pulling on 100-plus pound tuna.
Yeah. Instead of 8 or 9 pound springers that we get to chase around.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could jump in on the boats on the 20th. Never mind. We'll get there in a minute. All right. So lots of things going on with the CCA. As we all know, the CCA has been here in the Northwest for a long time now. Thank goodness. I don't even want to know where we would be when you're talking about salmon and steelhead opportunities in the Northwest without them. Now, obviously, there's always issues that are going to happen when you're talking about Washington and Oregon trying to manage a single river. We all know my opinion. I'm going to stay out of it. But we also have other issues, okay? The Willamette Corps of Engineers has tried, or at least mentioned, that they want to stop funding for spring chinook and summer steelhead in different locations, and that is a hugely annoying, I mean, to a sport angler here in the Northwest. I mean, this is like one of the stupidest things that we've heard, and we hear a lot of stupid stuff, okay? Just a fact. So tell us where we're at with that Corps of Engineers deal on the Willamette and them trying to eliminate our hatcheries.
Originally, when I was supposed to come on the show today, it was to talk about the Army Corps.
And we could have done it the entire show.
Our Willamette Spring Chinook. Yeah. But I'm just going to give you like a really quick Reader's Digest version of it.
Sure.
So like in the 1950s-ish, all the flood control dams were built. You've seen Green Peter in Detroit and Lookout Point and Blue Creek. And so all these different dams that are 400 foot high, give or take, head height, flood control dams, no fish passage, never meant for fish passage. So this was the white man's way back in the day. You build a dam, you put a hatchery next to it, say, we'll make your fish in the hatchery.
Right.
And the Army Corps committed, we have to have those dams. Without those dams, Portland, Salem, Eugene all go underwater every spring.
Yeah, flood.
So with those dams in place, we've had to be completely reliant on those hatchery production for the Willamette spring chinook fishery.
Right.
So that's where we're at. Army Corps promised to keep making the same poundage of salmon that were returning before the dams. And every few years, it seems like they try to walk that back. They try to say, oh, well, that was then and this is now, and we're doing all this stuff for the Endangered Species Act and spending money on passage so we don't have to make hatchery fish anymore. And my position, our position has always been, when you show that your wild surrogate fish, which they're messing around with, but it's never going to be a big run.
Well, of course not.
I said, when you show that you can produce the same poundage of fish as you were with the hatcheries, we'll talk about, stepping down the hatcheries, maybe after 10 years when we've seen that it's stable.
Right.
But in the meantime, you're not taking any of our hatchery fish.
Right.
So this year they proposed to cut that funding by $1.7 million, and we immediately jumped in the middle of that, and we went to our congressional delegation, our federal delegation, and they were right on top of being very supportive of that. They have been in the past, and they all wrote letters in full support. They said they're going to lean in on committee hearings. They'll get that money back. $1.7 million, honestly, in the grand scheme of things in the federal budget, I mean, it's a grain of sand.
Sure.
So we want to keep those grains of sand. We want to keep those hatchery fish being made until we see something that'll replace it and actually provide a fishery for all of us. So that's what we've been working on, and we got not only federal support, but also our state legislators have been very supportive of that. The ones that are up and down the Willamette River all wrote letters in support of this, asking for this fee to be, put back in.
Sure.
And without that kind of support, we would have never got the Leeburg Dam over into the ODFW hands.
Sure.
And we wouldn't be having, one thing the CCA has always been adamant about is not reducing spring Chinook plants in the main stem or in the tributaries. I hear a lot of boat ramp chatter about how, production's been cut in order to enhance the terminal areas, and it's just not true, because production's still the same, but we are making more smolts and sending them to the terminal areas to keep the gill nets off the main stem, which is a conversation that I think we're probably going to talk about.
We will get into that
next. So anyway, the Army Corps stuff's important. We sent out a letter about this on Friday, I believe. We've been, this is, you and I first mentioned it when I was at the Sportsman Show. So that was February?
February.
Yeah. So we've been working on this since then, but now it's all kind of coming to a head. And in the meantime, we've had a couple of distractions. So we do have a new director at ODFW. The way that works is the governor kind of came down with
Let's hold on to that, though. I want to hold on to that. We got a whole segment set up just for that. So I got a couple of questions.
Let's go back to
until Ryan tells me that I can't.
Yep.
Any other help coming from any sources when you're talking about the hatcheries on the Willamette system?
Well, there's other concerned stakeholders that I think will weigh in that haven't been real public yet, but politically, those conversations, a lot of them happen without putting it out in a news statement.
Okay.
So,
so you're not alone.
Not at all, and I really believe that the reaction was so quick and so solid that I think I don't think it's going to be a big reach to get that funding back.
This is a great question. At least I think. Is there actually a rational person that's involved in these decision-making at all that actually thinks that a wild stock can come back and overtake what the hatchery systems can do on those dams? A rational person.
Well, that eliminates a lot of people. Yeah, I mean that's the fact of it. I mean, it wasn't very many years ago. I actually testified in Salem in a committee hearing, and I just said, look, we know what salmon need. We've been studying them for 150 years. And the whole committee kind of stops and looks at me, and I'm kind of waiting for everybody to get everybody's attention. And they need us all to pack up all of our stuff and leave.
Right.
And put everything back the way it was before we got here. But we're not going to do that, are we? So we're going to have some hatcheries if we want to have fish.
Right.
And that's as simple as it gets.
I say rational because it's nothing but irrational. If you think about somebody making decisions for these sorts of topics that we're covering here, that you can bring back a true wild stock back to what it was before the dams were in. You're just ridiculous. Again, my own personal opinion, not that Agree Media or CCA, that's my take on it, and all yours as well. Common sense has to come back into play at some point in time with all these ignorant organizations that are out there trying to eliminate our hatcheries and somehow magically get these fish back to rocks that don't exist anymore. It's ridiculous. That's why we have to have the CCA, and I'm going to mention, and others that are out there helping in these situations, because it's never going to stop. We've been talking about this on air since 2010, 2011, with our relationship with the CCA, through 2012 when all the decisions were made. Yeah. I mean, things are crazy, and the states will lie to the stakeholders constantly, and there's a constant fight. No matter what they agree to, they're lying, and you have to fight it the entire time. Yeah. Every win, well, that's just the beginning. Every loss is still just the beginning. It constantly has to be fought. This battle has to be fought. These are the reasons why you need to join the CCA, the NSIA, Northwest. I don't care. Just get involved so we have help. Because without them, this stuff is all gone. GPS would be gone. $billion industry here in Oregon and Washington. Billions dollars industry here in Oregon and Washington gone. We have to have the help. I mean, I'm going to get sidetracked, and I'm not going to do it. He's seen me get in big trouble, and I'm not going to do it today. Okay, we're going to cut to a break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about the new director, right? You guys got behind her before the decision was finally made. The CCA did. Yeah. It could have been a disaster, in my opinion.
I think so.
And things went pretty good. We'll see how it plays out. We'll find out what the CCA's take is on that. We'll be right back.
Outdoor GPS is brought to you by Chevy Silverado and the impressive new Turbo Max engine. Flex your muscle with the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever. Official truck of Outdoor GPS.